Welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Friday, the 24th of May. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Microsoft has pushed out an emergency fix for Windows Server 2019. It addresses errors in the Patch Tuesday patches for that OS that were released earlier this month. There is the original patch has created certain sorts of errors. So they have released an out of, what do they call it, out of band or something. So it isn't really out of band, but it's out of sequence, out of time slot, whatever, patch to address this. So if you are running Windows Server 2019, it is worth having a look to see whether this particular issue is something that you need to address. If so, there is a new knowledge base article dealing with this, 5039705. It's an out of band, as they call it, update for Windows Server 2019. Resolves errors when installing the May updates. So there's a 3-year-old Apache flaw which is under active attack. It's an improper access control bug in Apache Flink that was fixed in January 2021. So it has been around for a long time, an eternity in the context of vulnerabilities and exploits. The bug was tracked, or is tracked, as CVE 2020 17519. And the patches have been made available since January. So it was discovered in 2020, fixed in 2021, January 2021. So why am I raising this now? Well, it is actively being exploited at the moment. It has made its way onto the US government's actively exploited list, the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. So it is, and they are conservative about the stuff that they put in there. So if they're saying it's being actively exploited, they're not making this stuff up. So definitely, if you are running, well, firstly, if you think you may, or any of the applications or solutions that you have got may be using Flink, definitely look into whether updates are required, or whether you have other mitigating actions in place to address these vulnerabilities. But mostly this is just a timely reminder that keeping on top of patching is really important. And also, I suspect that there is a proportion of the vulnerable devices out there that are being attacked have simply been missed. I think there is a tendency to, certainly in the cyber world, there's a tendency to roll one's eyes and say things like, well, if only the infrastructure people cared. But actually they do. They really do. Now, I've looked after both the cyber side of things and the infrastructure side of things over my years in technology. And, you can absolutely guarantee they do. They get it. Sometimes the challenges are too hard. Sometimes things are just not prioritized because it's unclear how things should be being done. But a fair amount of time, stuff's just not known about. So asset management is one of those ITIL processes that everybody goes, oh, please, not again. Boiling oceans with a match is kind of how it feels like sometimes. with this. But it just goes to show that there are, if you don't know what you've got running where, that is a much more significant problem than a lot of people realise. There are times when just actually doing the right stuff, no matter how hard it is worth, is absolutely worth it. And knowing what you've got out there and knowing what state it's in is really important. So have a think about asset management over the weekend. That's your homework for the weekend. Right. But do you know what you've got running across your whole estate, and would you know where to find, let's say, Apache Flink, if somebody came to you and said, "Prove to me it's patched"? Interesting question. So finally from me today, nice easy Friday. Easy Fridays are good. Apple wasn't storing deleted iOS photos in iCloud. Okay, so referring back to earlier this week when I spoke about this, my gut feeling was that this was in some way a process running on iOS devices that was trawling the trawling memory storage, and recovering stuff. Because as we talked about, in the days of mechanical hard disks, spinning magnetic disks and physical arms with sensors on them picking up ones and zeros, it actually deleting a file was very slow. So when you deleted it, all that actually happened was that the entry in the, well, we'll call it a file allocation table. And yes, I know there are lots of other file systems out there, but just from natural language, a file allocation table is kind of a concept most people will get. But basically, it's an index of whereabouts on the disk do I find this data for this file. Well, you just delete the index and then you can't find it anymore, unless you then read the entire disk and go, okay, let's look to see whether stuff on this disk actually constitutes an unindexed file, and you could recover stuff that way. Right, looks like a process in iOS 17.5, the process which identifies new photos and then ensures that they're uploaded and synced across all your devices. Well, it looks like that process was trawling storage on iOS devices, finding things which should actually have been marked as, or in fact not marked as being anything, but in fact shouldn't have been available, finding them and then going, okay, there's something new here, I will add it back in. So I think the hypothesis that this was just recovering stuff that hadn't been physically deleted from a disk turns out to be very likely to have been true. Why does this matter? Well, firstly, it means all the conspiracy theorists about Apple downloading the contents of all of your photos and storing them somewhere and doing things with them, well, it's probably not true. It wouldn't be in their best interests anyway. So that's that isn't where this has come from. Then the other thing to think about is it just goes to show that even on solid state storage like you have in mobile devices, the method of deleting things appears most likely to still be just delete its index, leave the data on there. Now that has impacts for privacy as you are selling and or disposing of old devices. If you've reset your device to factory defaults before you sell it on eBay or whatever, how certain are you that the data has actually been deleted? I think that's going to be a question that will be sort of floating around quietly in the background amongst people that use. And this isn't an Apple issue specifically. This will be equally um, it will be an equally big problem for people running Android, except possibly with Android, you may have the ability to get under the hood and have a look at this stuff. Whereas with iOS, you don't. So I thought that was an interesting update. The article, again, it's from Bleeping Computer, some decent articles that they come out with this week. Good article from Bleeping Computer about this. Apple are being, very typically Apple, are very quiet about this. The fact that we know what went on is down to some security engineers basically reverse engineering the 17.5.1 iOS update to find out what it did. Good on them. Right, that is enough. It is, in fact, enough for this week. I hope you all have a great weekend. It's bank holiday weekend in the UK, so I will be back with you again